Hello, Dr. Wiggins, and welcome to our post-6 discussion. I'm Emma.
Elisa. McKinley.
Molly. And we'll start by discussing Freeman and Freeman Chapter 3. So they gave a pretty nice list of things that could influence how teachers teach. And all of us in our replies talked about how our education in this education program here at Western will influence us. Just as a basis for how we start teaching and then probably continue.
Elisa, speaking of that, I had a question because you said, oh wait, no, maybe it was Mackenzie.
Oh no.
No. Where was it?
Or just say what it is and maybe.
Well, it was that somebody said like, I feel like I'm so prepared to, I feel like we're being so prepared to teach subject specific.
Oh yeah, I read that too.
Shoot, who?
I think it was you.
Was it me?
Yeah.
Maybe it was in a different part.
No, subject specific curriculum. Just with our math classes and.
Oh, did I say that?
I know.
Well, I mean,
maybe
that's
it was
true.
Maybe it was way far, and you guys are in a different program than we are. So,
Yeah. I think it is interesting what you're saying. I don't remember writing that, but if I did, it wouldn't, I guess,
maybe I did.
surprise me. But I think like in this schooling that we get at Western, or at least in our program, we have like literacy classes, and then we have a math class, and then we have a science class, and they all teach us how to write lesson plans specifically for those subjects, which makes sense, but at the same time, it's like hard to know, like, when you go into a classroom, you don't necessarily see that every day. You don't see like a lesson per like subject. It's more like integrated into each other, or like learning. I don't know. And so, I guess it would be.
well, I guess that was just my question because that you guys are in your second year of your program.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because we're in our first year and it's all been theory this year.
Yeah.
And so we're like, oh, you get to learn about like how to actually teach.
Yeah.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay. That was, I don't know. That was
You do learn how to
They do
teach
us how
Yeah.
Yeah, like really well too. They prepare us and like you get a lot of practicum experience. I know you guys already get that also anyway, but you get even more of that in like teaching lesson plans, which is super nerve-wracking at first, but then it's just like super fun.
And
you
like
just get really good at it.
you learn how to teach. Like we taught our last quarter, we taught a literacy class, and we taught third graders how to do persuasive speeches. It was crazy.
Oh, cool.
I didn't know third graders could do that, but it was like the most adorable thing I've ever seen in my life. But I guess like because of the experiences that I'm having now in the program and like the different teachers that I'm watching, I feel like all of that really influences like how I'm going to be in my classroom, just because like right now I'm volunteering in a kindergarten class, and like the way that I see her teach is sometimes different than what I'm learning in my classes, but then I'm like, oh, well, I love how she does this, or like the focus sometimes doesn't have to be like people in school. I think they make it sound so like this is how you have to have your day, and like you have to have math and science and literacy, and you have to have this amount of time and blah blah blah. And like today we did Mother's Day like arts and crafts, and like sang songs and did like a morning meeting, but it's always different, and like I don't know. So I feel like that is really going to influence how I like teach.
Yeah. You can like weave in literacy to writing a card.
Yeah.
For Parents Appreciation Day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she had them like write a letter and then like learn a song and then like do an art project and like these different things, and so and then do like something with shapes.
Yeah. I liked your point about how we've had a lot of experience with learning how to teach and being in school, but not much so far with like following the standards or interacting with bosses and co-teachers and their different perspectives.
Well, I feel like it would be so hard going into school and being a first-time teacher, and then someone like walking into your classroom and being like, well, you should try this, or like do this instead, and you're like, well, I like the way that I do it, and like I feel like it would be so hard not to be influenced.
Yeah. Or when I worked in a preschool, and there were some teachers that were just like, you know, they'd been around for forever, and they're like, no, I'm not changing how I do things. I'm not. Like, and they're just pushback so much, and they were just so resistant to any type of change. And so when we go in and we're, you know, these like young people with current research knowledge, and we kind of think we know everything because we've just read it in a book, and they kind of think they know everything because they've been doing it for 30 years, you know, and so I kind of see the potential for that clash. And
Yeah, that it goes like both ways.
yeah,
Yeah.
where we have to learn from them and they need to learn from us. And
I think that happens a lot in student teaching too, of like people going into these classrooms and being like, oh my gosh, like they are, I don't know, just that like idea, just thought of like, I guess you don't get as much like say in what you do either, and so it's like you just kind of have to like go with it, but I see a lot of like potential and like that could influence you. I think you could be influenced in like good ways or bad ways, like growing up in school, like I don't know, like if a teacher was really horrible and you want to teach like the complete opposite of them, there's also that influence. Sometimes I think influence is just good. Or then there's the like, I had a Spanish teacher, and in her AP Spanish class we would go to her house on Tuesdays and we would have a taco Tuesday night and watch eat and talk in Spanish and then watch like a Spanish movie, and it was really cool. And so like that definitely has influenced me.
something that I think about, like you said, where you had a teacher that you didn't really like. Well, I remember I had teachers that nobody else liked and I loved because they were like, you know, they were mean and they did the time tests, and but I love time tests and I love standardized testing, and I will learn from a book, that's fine. And so I'm learning a lot from my classmates. Like we have a I don't know, I'd say we have a few classmates in our cohort who definitely learn in really different ways from me. And so just learning about like what's important to them and what kind of like learning or teaching that they need has reminded me of like a focus that I should have, or I don't know, like there's always those arguments of what should be the first thing to go, and when fun, you know, when you need to cut some funding. And like, I was always like, well, yeah, I mean, art, you know, it's not that important, you know? I don't really care about art. But if you want to cut the sports program, like, I'm like, no, that's not okay, because that's what got me through school is, you know, was doing sports. And, you know, so other people have told me, well, like, I did drama and that was where my place was, or I did, you know, so. And I'd say learning a lot from my classmates are influencing me too.
That is interesting, because like what you just said, like drama got me through school, and like art and being able to like express myself through music, and standardized testing was like terrible, and I can't take tests and I didn't do well, and so to think of like the opposite of that. Okay. That's hard to do, I think.
Yeah, so I need to remember that not everybody learns like me.
Yeah.
Well, I like people learn like you know, like some people do like the books and that kind of stuff, so interesting.
And just for me, my high school had the worst football team that I think has ever existed. We never won a game. And still they got so much funding, so there was a lot of arguments for just shutting them down because they weren't being successful as in winning. But maybe it did help people stay in school and like a demographic that wouldn't take part in drama and band.
Yeah, and like you have to keep up a certain, you know, grade point average to you know, to be able to play in games, and you have to stick to athletic code. You know, we would always say like, oh, I can't go to that party, or I never drank in high school because I was always on code. You know, if you get caught drinking or even at a party, then you get like suspended. So from playing games. So yeah, it just gives kind of people a reason.
And for me, like I had a lot of different experiences because I only went to a public school 1 year, and I was like homeschooled and then did Running Start, and so I feel like I have a really wide range of
I like that you said
everything,
that.
which is really interesting to think about, and I still like process through like, oh, what did I learn from each of those experiences? Because I know that it will shape how I teach students. And like my mom's a teacher and she really focuses on like getting to know her students like on a personal level, which I think is something that will shape me doing that, because that's what I really want to be able to do when I'm a teacher, to like gain their trust and stuff before I like can connect with them and like teach them academic things. Like doing those at the same time is like really important to me, which I think is something that I've learned from my mom and just like being taught by her also.
Yeah, I watched a TED Talk, Molly did too, in one of our classes that said kids don't learn from people they don't like.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, getting to know your kids is really
Yeah.
important or they'll
Yep.
just shut down.
Yeah, and Emma, you brought up too, like how in early childhood we were really focused on relationships with
Mhm.
families, and that might not be stressed as much in LED, but you know we're going to be up to third grade and we are going to do our dual endorsement, and so that's definitely our. If we end up teaching 6th, 7th, 8th grade, that I mean, I want a job, but hopefully there's a kindergarten job. And so if we're with those older students, we're gonna want to connect with their families because we have that's been so drilled into us how important that is.
Yeah.
I think I work at a summer camp in the summertime, but during the school year it's preschool, and they do like outreach to all the, I don't know what's happening with my computer right now. They do like outreach to all the families, so before, or like a week into school, they make like trips to their homes so that they can see like how they're living and like what their like home life is like, and that helps them in school, and I think that's super
totally.
interesting.
Yeah.
Home visits.
Which is not something that people like really do, like I don't
Or
think,
or
like
person.
especially in elementary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can see it like happening in preschool, but like in elementary school, I don't know, like
Yeah, I
if
think
that
it
might be like a
fades
little
out,
weird,
Yeah,
little
fades
bit.
out.
but yeah.
By middle school, no one does that.
I think that's just not normal for our culture to like just do in general.
Yeah, which I think is so weird, because isn't that like really important?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like then you really get to know your students.
Yeah, it's a huge factor in your performance, or
Yeah.
Okay, you want to talk about Yvonne? Is
Yes.
that how you say her name?
I think it's Yvonne.
Yvonne, okay. So Yvonne had a lot of different experiences.
Oh my gosh, she was
Oh yeah, like
so
everything.
impressed.
There were so many different ones.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting how when she went to Mexico, it was so like standards based. All the kids in the class be quiet, listen to the textbook.
And I wonder if part of that is because, and again, these people sound lovely, but I don't know how old this book is. It looks pretty newish, but they said
I think it
that
was 2011 was the latest.
They said that a lot of, and maybe they were in Mexico a long time ago, but they said that, I don't know, maybe I'm just completely wrong, but they said a lot of school teachers in Mexico only have like a high school degree.
I think it depends where in Mexico
Yeah, that
you
just
are.
doesn't sound right to me.
Because when I did study abroad in rural Panama, that was definitely true.
yeah,
They didn't have, maybe they had a minimal one-year teaching program
yeah.
degree, not a master's,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah.
Not even really.
I think it really depends on like where you're at. If you're in the more like low income places where they don't have like the money for that kind of stuff. I know my cousin taught in Guatemala, and this one like I don't know exactly where in Guatemala, but like just recently, and a lot of the people don't get college degrees because they don't need it, because
Mm-hmm.
there's no reason to get it, or like to like even have the money for it, because
Yeah.
there's not the jobs there that.
If you want to leave your
Yeah, I don't
home
know.
community, then there's possible to find a better job. But if
Yeah,
you want to
that's true.
stay where your whole family was, you might be working in the fields or.
Yeah, I guess I just think of Mexico City as more of, I don't know, like an international thriving city, then
Yeah, Mexico City seems, they have a big university there.
yeah. So I don't know. Maybe they were there a long time ago, or maybe, yeah.
I just think, yeah, like anywhere in the world, you know, it kind of depends on like where
Mm-hmm.
you're at.
So the second question says, address how the No Child Left Behind Act and English only laws affect the way students are learning English. And I think that, so the No Child, okay, so help like clarify exactly what the No Child Left Behind Act does. Because it sounded
Well,
good
I think
and bad at the
In
same
this
time.
context, it's supposed to be good,
Okay.
but it's making children take these standardized
That
tests
they're
to
not prepared
prove
for.
their English proficiency before they're scientifically proven
Yeah.
to even have a chance of having learned
Yeah.
English in that amount of time. It's just too fast.
So it's supposed to be a good thing, but for EL students, it's like
Well,
not necessarily
it's
the best.
I think it sounds good.
It sounds good, and it's
Better
been
than it
so politicized that, you know,
Mhm.
I'm biased to just be against it because George Bush supported it.
Mhm.
That's really like one of the only
Mhm.
things I know about it. But then, like, we can apparently attribute all the standardized testing to being connected to funding to No Child Left
Mhm.
Behind. And I mean, it's a hard thing because we do want to hold schools and
Mhm.
teachers accountable, but then putting the onus completely on the students in these standardized testing that in this situation is really detrimental to the ELL students and minorities. Like they were saying how they hold back a lot of ninth
Yeah.
graders
Yeah.
so that they don't do the 10th grade
Oh
test.
gosh, yeah, that was terrible.
That was
I know those
horrifying.
students just feel like terrible.
Oh yeah, and then they're probably, well, I might as well
I'm
just
doing
drop out.
literally the same classes again.
Yeah.
Like, why am I
For the, they said sometimes like 3 times, but they
Yeah.
will do it like 3
Mhm.
times.
Oh my god.
Yeah, which I can't imagine. I had a really hard time in school, and if they kept giving me the exact same instruction, the exact same way, and I still wasn't being successful, like, where do you go from there? Yeah,
Yeah.
like, people drop out like that. It's terrible, but it makes
Yeah.
sense if they're gonna keep, like,
Obviously.
I
not
didn't know
the
that
solution.
happened. I didn't know that happened as much as it was saying that it happens.
Well, and it was interesting because they said that that it's normally a good thing to disaggregate scores based on race and ethnicity, but in this situation, because the schools know that, that they're like are gonna try and I don't know, keep the usually lower performing races and ethnicities from taking the test in general. That's
Yeah.
kind of what it made it seem like, which is
Or take it after one more year of preparation.
yeah, that's true.
If you're curious what the, like, actual definition of No Child Left Behind is.
No, I like found that.
It
but-
says no child left
No, I'll
behind
take it.
requires all public schools receiving federal funding to administer a statewide standardized test annually to all students. This means that all students take the same test under the same conditions.
Mhm.
So that just,
Yeah.
It-
Really generally.
there was a part and it was like kind of like different like aspect. I think it was like the bullets of like No Child Left
Oh,
Behind
yeah,
Act,
yeah.
and that made it sound good. But if you like just think of it like that,
As a
it's
test.
like, yeah, you're not taking into account, like standardized tests, that's like the problem with them, is that they don't take into account students who have like learning disabilities or like
Mhm.
ELL students or like, you know, there's all these different like things.
Yeah,
that-
or information that's relevant to teach in one state is
Yeah.
not relevant in another.
Yeah.
Well, and which is interesting because it was, it's like a part of, I don't know, this might be, I don't know. Part of Title IX is like, that test questions couldn't be like gender based. So like, you know, like in math, there are a lot of sports problems. And well, a lot of girls didn't play baseball, you know, so they like just comprehending the questions. Like I kind of actually even felt like that on our 381 test the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because the question was that there's this merchant has boxes that he can fit into a carton, and then the shipment total was 96 boxes, and I'm like, just breaking down like, oh, okay, so boxes go in a carton, and the carton, and there's several cartons per shipment. Like, I mean, once I broke that down, the math was really easy, but it was really not relevant to me. I'm not a merchant.
Yeah.
So,
You don't deal with shipments on
So we're using
basis.
Yeah.
on these tests, they're not allowed to ask questions such as like,
that are
based on-
gender
so, like-
biased. So maybe we can move towards like them being culturally like to get rid of the culturally biased things. Maybe that would be one of the next fights.
interesting, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Or that like they can't be like gender biased. My question is, how do you even like decide that? You know,
Well, exactly, because I know more about baseball than
Yeah, that's
the
what I was
average guy.
you know.
But
Some guys are dancers and some girls
Exactly.
are sport. You know, and I
Yeah.
don't know, that just in itself was really weird to me because I was like, well, then what questions do you ask?
Yeah.
If they
Ask
can't
about-
be gender
ask
biased, then
about
like what
apples
is
and-
out there?
Apples.
Like, food, yeah.
but then that's Washingtonian bias. Let's see. Oh, and then the English only laws. It just, I've heard about them, but it still is just so hard to believe.
I can't comprehend
Especially in
it.
California.
Yeah.
Are you kidding
It's
me?
a liberal state.
Yeah. I think, yeah.
I mean,
just-
I think it's there to help students be forced to speak English, because
Yeah.
I know when you're studying abroad in another language, if you force yourself to speak that other language, you probably acquire it faster.
Mm-hmm.
But it like is so degrading
Yeah.
to the value of their language, and also doesn't enforce that language acquisition in their native language, which will help their academic achievement in English.
So is the law itself like literally if you hear kids talking in their native language,
As I
I
You
don't
have to
remember,
tell them
it
to
didn't
stop
talk
it?
a lot about it.
or is it just that
I think
they
it just,
don't
like,
do
it-
dual language programs or things like that? Because I wasn't, I wasn't totally clear. I thought it just meant like they don't teach in other languages. Other than like, of course, like Spanish
But there's
class,
something about-
French class.
Well, it says that it doesn't align with the First Amendment right to communicate with or petition or like to, because of freedom of speech. Like,
Yeah.
how can you do that?
Mhm.
This article I found is about the government mainly. Rick Santorum wanted Puerto Rico to make English their national or their language, official language. They are Puerto Rican.
I just feel like I don't know. That just like that blows my mind that can even like that's a thing that people want. Like that does. What's the problem? What's the problem with other languages? Like what?
Yeah, well, just the
What?
xenophobia, you know, like, pursue a political movement for the use only of the English language in official U.S. government operations.
I think that a lot of like schools and teachers probably think like if it's English only then I can help them better because maybe they don't know the other languages and they
Yeah.
don't want to go out of their way to like find support and like resources for that student because that'd be a lot of work. But that's just sad.
There was a part that said something about like people don't understand or like need support in like if they have a lot of ELL students and like having more what do you call it, like supports, different like supports and like having more resources because it does take more like time and effort to plan for students with ELL, like, you know, just because like you have to give them that like scaffolding of like, because you can't speak this language that everyone else around you is speaking, like let me help you.
Some visual cues and
Yeah.
a little more time.
And so like teachers do need support in that of
Yeah.
like, what to do, but
So I think mostly when the English only laws are implemented, that's probably something they just don't want to deal with.
yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Oh, I had
Which
something
is
really good
sad.
to say, but I can't remember.
And I mean, I think we all remember in high school, like, that kids who were in ELL classes, they were like separate and they didn't, you know, I don't know, like, talk with anybody else sometimes. And that I think maybe part of, or like, the justification that they can tell themselves for this law is that, like, oh, if they're not like speaking their native language, then they'll like be totally immersed in English and talk to other kids, you know.
Yeah.
But if they're constantly like separating themselves, but I think a more genuine solution would be like not completely segregating the ELL kids
So this
and ELL
might sound
classes.
crazy. I didn't have, like, if I had ELL students in my high school, like, I don't know I did, because I went to a very white populated school with like 3 black people and like some Asian people here and there. Like, it's crazy, but like
Well, it's
just like
they're so separated because I went to a really predominantly like probably 80-90% white school, but like my friend, one of her classes was like being a peer tutor in the ESL classes, so it's like they were just pushed to these other classes.
I don't even know if we had, I cannot think of one person that I like encountered unless they were studying abroad that like did not like know how to speak English.
Yeah.
So I just made that like connection of like, I'm talking about this, but haven't really seen that in schools yet. Wow, that's really weird. That's crazy.
I went to a school that was probably majority Spanish-speaking students, but the thing with that was that the English native speakers who couldn't speak Spanish kind of formed this clique. It was also like segregated, and we had our honors classes and AP classes and did band and like all these different activities than the rest of the school tended to do. And I think we got pushed on separate tracks, and I'm still trying to figure out when that happened. Probably like middle school.
And I'm wondering, because people have been referring to like the tracking system, like what does that mean?
Well, I think it started when you're registering for high school. Like, what classes are you going to take? Are you going to take the honors classes and the AP classes that are challenging and probably have good teachers or in the nice part of the school with the big windows? Or are you going to take the regular classes with the unmotivated teachers who have had a lot of students drop out and don't want to participate in classes and are at the windowless section of the school?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of student are you going to be? And then you kind of just get stuck with all these friends you made in those first couple classes, taking the same classes together.
Yeah, that's true. Because I had heard about it in my junior high, because we were split up into like A and B, and all the A people.
Did you get to choose A or B, or was it like they just put you? Okay.
Yeah, they just put you. And so the A people all had the same math, social studies, history, language arts, teachers, English, art, that's language, social studies, can't remember the core subjects.
Yeah.
And then the other group, so the other group had the other set of teachers. And so part of me kind of wonders, like, if that was some type of tracking thing, like,
How they divided the kids.
yeah,
How they ranked the teachers.
exactly. So I'm not sure. I liked all my teachers, so I don't know if I was tracked good or bad.
Good for you.
Avoid tracking by doing that.
Yeah, maybe.
You didn't have that because
Nope.
you were homeschooled.
Well, I went to like a private school also, but I was really little, so I don't. Or I was like up until 5th grade, so I don't really remember.
Yeah. I think the majority of tracking kind of started later.
Yeah.
This might be a weird question, but so you said you were homeschooled, but your mom's a teacher?
Well, so my mom, yes, she used to be a teacher
Uh-huh.
for a while when I was younger, and she taught at the private school that I was at.
Oh,
And
okay.
then she subbed for a while I was homeschooled. While she was teaching me, she would also sub. And now she like teaches at like a homeschool like co-op thing where people come together, and she's like created her own classes and
Oh,
stuff
okay.
and like her own curriculum for them.
Gotcha.
Oh, that's cool.
So
Why did your mom, this is so off track, I don't know, can I ask these questions? I'm just curious why your mom put you in homeschool instead of,
That's a good question. I think we had a choice when I moved here in 6th grade, and
you chose to be homeschooled?
I guess so.
What do you mean you had a choice, like between your siblings?
No, like between like if I wanted to go to a public school or being homeschooled. But I think since I just moved there, I was like, oh, I just want to try homeschool. Since my mom was a teacher, like to get used to like living here, I guess. And then after that, I just loved it because I could like work whenever I wanted, and I would get done with school at like noon every day, and it was just like so much time not wasted like at public school that
Yeah, no
happens.
kidding.
That's true.
Wait, so where are you from and where did you?
I moved from Alaska here
Oh,
like
gotcha.
when in 6th grade.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So I don't. Yeah.
I was just curious.
But I did go to Bell High School for 9th grade, and then my mom gave me the choice if I wanted to like go back to being homeschooled or like stay there. And I really didn't have all that many friends there because I was only there for a year,
Yeah.
and so I just like thought that it'd be more beneficial to like work and do school and do sports and activities still. But
Did you do school sports?
yeah.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
I think it's really interesting thinking about the first part of what we've been talking about, the influences and how they have like effect on us, and how like different, now that we've like just talked about like all of our experiences and how different they were, and like how that will influence us like
Crazy ways.
in like in our classrooms, whether we like know it or not, like being homeschooled compared to like being at like a predominantly like Spanish speaking school, to like having no diversity at school, and you know, like I don't know, that's just really interesting. Yep.
Okay, move on.
Whoa.
How do people learn and acquire language?
So I'll talk first because my question first, and it said, explain the zone of proximal development and invention and social convention. Personal invention and social convention, and basically the zone of proximal development is like this space where students like learn, like where they go from like teacher help to like independent working, right?
It's what they can do by themselves
What they can do by
versus
themselves.
what they can do with some help.
With some help. And so, yeah, so I think that we've learned about that a lot in our
Yeah.
classes. And I think it's really interesting, like, knowing how exactly to, like, meet that zone and, like, have students be in that zone where they're learning things. Like, I don't know if I could exactly create a lesson yet that would do that,